Alright guys, here we are with our solving division equations video. Two learning targets. These should look familiar. First one is students will be able to demonstrate solving division equations, and the second one is students will be able to write equivalent division equations. So again, not only do you have to be able to solve them with the correct work and everything, but also I want you to be able to take answers, find the answers, and then write other equations that are equivalent. Remember, equivalent means they represent the same amount. Alright, let's go on with our first example. If you need to pause, go ahead. In my first example, again, I just want to talk about what you need to do to solve division equations. Alright, so we talked about inverses, and the inverse to multiplication is dividing. So in the last video, we were dividing to solve all of our answers. In this equation, we are dividing. Now again, remember a fraction bar stands for division. So this is division. I am doing x divided by 8. So what I'm going to do to solve it is I'm going to do the inverse operation. So the inverse of dividing is to multiply. So I want to get x by itself. I'm dividing to the x. So to solve this problem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by the number I'm dividing by. Similar to when we were subtracting and then we added and that got us back to our original amount. When we divide by 8, to solve it, when we're dividing by 8, to solve it, when I multiply by 8, then that gets us back to 1, which is what we want to know. We want to know what 1x equals. So I'm going to multiply 8 to both sides. That is, I would solve this problem. Okay? The inverse of division is multiplication, so I'm going to multiply 8 to both sides. That would give me my answer. I'm going to pause if you need to. I'm going to go on to the next example. Okay? To show you again, here I am dividing, so my fraction bar stands for division. So I have x divided by 7.4 equals 5.5. So what would I do to solve it? Well, the inverse of dividing is to multiply, so I'm going to multiply 7.4 to both sides. That is how I would solve, this problem, and that would be the equivalent ratio, or the equivalent equation there of solving. Okay, so again, the inverse of division, which this is division, the inverse of division is to multiply, and that's how I'm going to solve them. Alright, let's move on to actual solving problems in our next example. If you need to pause, go ahead. Okay, our first example where I want to solve, I have x divided by 13 equals 7. Okay, so that fraction stands for my division. So in order to solve that division problem, I'm going to multiply both sides by the number I'm dividing by. Since I'm dividing by 13, to solve it, I'm going to multiply by 13. I like to use a dot in this example. I'm going to do a multiply by 13 on this side, and I'm going to do a multiply by 13 on that side. So I've multiplied both sides by 13. Now again, a lot of people look at this and say, you're doing 13 times 13. Now this 13 is in the numerator, because 13, remember, is the same as 13 over 1, and that 13 is in the denominator. If you think back to our fractions unit, we talked about cross-canceling. 13 divided by 13 is 1. Oh, that's just going to give us 1 times 1 on the bottom, 1 times x on the top is going to give us an answer of x. So you're actually cross-canceling when you do this. That gives us our x's, which is what we want. On the other side, I'm going to multiply the 7 times the 13, which is 91. So my final answer is x equals 91. And that's the equivalent division equation, which requires us to solve the problem. Okay. Move on to example 3, or part B here. Again, I want the equivalent division that requires us to solve it. So I'm dividing by 3.2. What am I dividing by? What do I mean by that? I'm dividing my variable by 3.2. The inverse of division is to multiply, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 3.2. Do 3.2 there, and then multiply by 3.2 there. Okay, again, these are going to cross off, so that's going to leave me with x equals 19.6 times 3.2 is going to give us 62 and 72 hundredths. 62 and 72 hundredths. And that is my final answer. And again, I did the inverse operation to solve those. I was dividing to my variable, so I did the inverse and I multiplied. Alright, if you need to pause, go ahead. I'm going to go on to example number 3. In example 3, this is our creating part. I want to create equivalent division equations. So in order to do that, I need to first figure out what x represents, because when I write my equivalent equation, I need it to represent the same amount. So again, I have x divided by 6, so I'm taking my variable and dividing by 6, so the inverse is going to be to multiply by 6. Multiply both sides by 6, and I get x equals 24. I'm going to write another equation where x equals 24. And again, I want it to be in a division equation. I'm going to give you two examples. So I'm going to start with x divided by. Now, in this one, I could just pick any old number, but I'm going to be left with decimals. So I'm going to think about, remember, always thinking about x equals, alright, in this case it equals 24. So I'm going to think about a number that goes into 24. Let's try 8. 8 goes into 24. So 24 divided by 8, that is 3. So my final answer is going to be x divided by 8 equals 3. Okay, let's do another one. X divided by, this time I want to choose 12. Okay, 24 divided by 12 is 2, so it's going to be x divided by 2. 12 equals 2. Okay, there are a lot of options to choose from here, but you probably want to stick to your whole numbers for most of these, so you don't have to worry about working with decimals. Okay, although it is okay to have decimals in your answer. Alright, I'm going to move on to my last example. In my last example, again, I have my variables divided by 9. So the inverse of my dividing by 9 is to multiply both sides by 9. Notice the work that I show to both sides, always showing my work to both sides, and always the inverse operation of what's being done to the variable. Let's cross off, so I get x equals 4 times 9 is 36. So I'm going to write a problem that has 36 where x equals 36. Again, I'll give you two examples. In my first one, I'm going to do x divided by, again, x is 36, so I want to think of numbers that go into 36. And there's a lot of options. I'm going to choose 6. X divided by 6 equals, well, 36 divided by 6 equals 6, so x divided by 6 equals 6. Okay, I can multiply those. 6 times 6 equals 36 to check my work. Okay, try another one. Let's do x divided by, let's do 12 again. Okay, 36 divided by 12 is 3. 12 times 3 is 36. So, to solve this problem, x divided by 12 equals 3 would be an equivalent equation. Alright, have a great night, and that's all we have for today, so I will see you guys tomorrow. Again, make sure that if you didn't understand something that you go back, rewind it, make sure you focus on showing the correct work, okay, as well as getting the correct answer. Alright, so the work is just as important as the answer when doing these videos. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you guys tomorrow.